my talk. Russian invasion of Ukraine has potentially brought the world wobbling at the brink. Putin's got his fingers on Russia's nuclear triggers. Putin warned that any intervention by the West would provoke the unleashing of unprecedented consequences. It is clear that Putin is thereby referring to nuclear consequences. This threat conjures up fearsome and nightmarish images of 45,000 feet and 60,000 feet nuclear bomb-induced mushroom clouds that erupted over Hiroshima and Nagasaki in World War II. Who can forget the chaos and devastation that was wreaked? Russia's invasion of Ukraine has potentially brought the world to the brink of nuclear warfare again. It is becoming increasingly clear that the Russian invasion of Ukraine has set off a chain of events that may have changed the world forever. A new geopolitical era seems to be evolving, initiated to a large extent by the events surrounding the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The imposition of punitive sanctions on Russia by the US and Europe to bring Russia's recalcitrant leader to heel and to curb its onslaught are now proving to have unwanted counter effects. At the outset, the sanctions will have a sharp effect on the finances and hence of the lifestyles of Russians at all levels. However, the institution of these sanctions may trigger in Russian citizenry and us against them feel. So instead of reducing Putin's support at home, these sanctions may have the counter effect of bolstering his standing among the Russians. Not only this, global trade has been severely affected. It is a casualty of this war. The imposed sanctions will impact the way nations do business with Russia and with each other. Nations will view each other as suspect in terms of each other's pro or anti-Russian sympathies. As a result, intercontinental alliances may be formed as nations may align themselves according to ideological leanings. A divided Europe and a divided world will result with consequences for national security of many at-risk nations. There will be other divisive consequences too. The architecture of the world will be forever changed. Nations will be pushed from globalism towards greater protectionism, resulting in increasing insularity. They will press towards protectionism and away from vulnerabilities that existing dependencies on global markets are making them susceptible to. Because of the widespread reliance on global markets, these sanctions and bans already impact the world made vulnerable by the current genre of international trading. And for instance, Ukraine supplies 40% of the world's sunflower oil and a significant percentage of its grain. Many Middle Eastern and North African countries buy much of their wheat from Russia and Ukraine. These and other dependent countries will experience shortfalls of staples and increased hunger insecurities. Events surrounding the Russian-Ukraine war has triggered a paucity in production. Both planting and harvesting of crops have significantly slowed. And with the closure of the Black Sea port, transporting food commodities to their destinations poses a challenge. Seeds and fertilizers cannot get to farms. Many nations are therefore looking at increases in the price of basic staples as a result of the scarcity that is bound to arise. Again, it seems that the world is wobbling on the brink of world hunger. Scarcity will be compounded by increasing energy costs. Many European Union countries are, for instance, dependent on Russia for their energy. Bans on Russian oil have caused a global rise in energy costs. The imposed sanctions have ricocheted back to Europe with severity because of market dependency. It has also resulted in widespread inflation in both the US and Europe. For self-protection, these nations will therefore start looking to other energy sources. Ultimately, this spells massive changes in the 21st century geopolitical reality this early in the century. The fallout of this war has shown the underbelly of globalism. Global security too is becoming increasingly uncertain and unpredictable. The concept of national sovereignty, for instance, has seemingly become more porous, a disturbingly loose concept, as Totters that can be easily breached, a thing of the past. Will the world allow Putin to set this premise in place, thus initiating a new political reality that the world cannot contain or is ready for? At this point, fear of Putin has taken hold of Europe, as Putin dominates the global narratives. The world needs a reset if it is to return to a semblance of stability. If Russia is not stopped, Russia and political authoritarianism may emerge as a dark horse in the race for world leadership, rivaled only by the US and Western democracy. In this political moment, the EU and the US must recognize the inadequacy of sanctions as a strategy to dissuade Russian aggressions and a return to political authoritarianism that was stamped out decades earlier. Is more than a war against Ukraine. We must learn from history. In 1990, Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, breaching its national sovereignty. Iraq's intent was to annex Kuwait to itself, similar to Russia's current intent. A coalition of 34 countries banded together and, using force, put an end to Saddam's madness. In 4 days, they liberated Kuwait. This could be Ukraine. What is different in this instance? Why is Putin being allowed to get away with it? Sanctions and bans are proven to be inadequate. There is need for something greater than what exists. Perhaps we need a similar coalition at this juncture to forcibly stop the Russian advance and to stop the world being thrown into cataclysmic convulsions. This is Invades, and it has been my talk. Bye for now.